My fiancé cheated on me with my brother. I, a 28-year-old male, was living what I thought was the perfect love story. Engaged to the woman of my dreams, Selena, whom I met in college, we had an immediate connection because of her kind and extroverted behavior. For me, it was a complete fairy tale. But as we all know, not all fairy tales have happy endings. That's exactly when I woke up from my dream to the harsh reality. Our relationship was long distance after dating in college for a few years. Coming from different cultures made everything pretty hard for us to continue. So, after 2 years of relationship, we called it quits and went our separate ways. But destiny had other plans for us. I have a younger brother. Let's call him John. He is a very extroverted person, always partying and going to clubs. Unlike me, he was a very spoiled kid, as he is the youngest in the household. No one really disciplined him for his actions, language, or morals. I loved my brother, but we have a very off relationship. My parents always put my choices aside to fulfill his because he was younger. After becoming a German translator, I rarely met my parents and my brother, except on occasions or at parties. It wasn't like I had no affection for them, but the way they treated me made me distant. For some time, my brother used to come to my place drunk every night, and I gave him the space to rest. He was one hell of a butt and didn't even have a job, just living off my parents' money. Due to John's extroverted behavior, Selena came into my life again. John started working as a bartender in a very famous bar because my dad eventually got tired of his crap, and he doesn't have a proper degree, so he needed to restart. John invited me to a party hosted by him in the club. It was very loud and crowded. I met many college friends, and there she was, sitting on a chair talking to John, who was seemingly flirting with her. It made me chuckle. Seeing her after so many years made me realize that I still loved her as much as I did back then. It made me feel fresh, as if we were still together. I waved towards her nervously. She walked towards me and hugged me. We talked and filled our cups with each other's life information. It was an amazing feeling. John walked towards me, surprised to find that we knew each other. I left the club and we shared our contacts with each other. Something about her behavior made me realize that maybe she wanted me again. Her signs and the way she was talking to me. One good thing was that we both hadn't dated anyone seriously after our breakup. I wasn't sure about starting things again, but after so many years I felt happier. The reason behind our first breakup was long distance, but now we both were working in the same cities. I was hopeful. Maybe it could work out. Selena and John were great friends, and it was surprising. I wanted to know when Selena and John met, but I felt awkward asking her that. So I accepted it and let the good times roll. We started seeing each other and talking for endless hours to make up for the gap. The more Selena and I reconnected, the more it felt like reigniting an old flame. Our conversations were not just mere exchanges. They were deep, meaningful, and often stretched into the late hours of the night. We were rediscovering each other, exploring the depths we had missed in our years apart. It was as if we were meant to be together, and the lost time only made our bond seem stronger. Selena's growing friendship with John, however, was something I couldn't quite understand. They seemed to have formed a close bond while I was away, with John often being her guide in the new city. My trust in John was implicit. After all, he was my brother. Despite the odd feeling it gave me, I was grateful for his support in helping Selena adjust. When Selena and I decided to give our relationship another chance, it felt like a dream. Our connection was stronger, more mature, and we both were keen on making it work this time. Starting from our past, we took things slow, basking in the joy of being together again. The proposal came on our 1-year anniversary of rekindling our relationship. Her yes was the most euphoric moment of my life. But amidst this happiness, John's behavior started to become a point of concern. He was around us more often than necessary, sometimes intruding into our private moments. His presence was becoming a bit too constant and uncomfortable. I discussed this with Selena, but she laughed it off, saying John was just being protective and friendly. I tried to dismiss my concerns, attributing them to unfounded jealousy, but something inside me couldn't shake off the unease. I began to notice subtle changes, the way Selena and John glanced at each other, their inside jokes, and the relationship with the two. I began to notice the feelings of the undeniable spark in Selena's eyes whenever John was around. This was different, not just friendly. The pangs of jealousy I felt were turning into seeds of doubt, but I kept pushing those thoughts away, convincing myself that I was just being paranoid. I had to leave town suddenly for a work assignment and couldn't inform Selena or John about my early return. According to surprise Selena, I reached her apartment expecting a quiet evening together, but the scene that awaited me was far from anything I could have imagined. As I reached Selena's apartment, I could hear laughter and music from outside. Confused but curious, I unlocked the door with the spare key she had given me. What I saw inside shattered my world. Selena and John were dancing closely, lost in their own world. They hadn't noticed my arrival. The intimacy between them was undeniable. I stood there, frozen, unable to process the scene before me. Finally, I coughed to announce my presence. They jumped apart, and the look on their faces said it all. Selena's eyes were wide with shock, and John looked like he had seen a ghost. I didn't know what to say or do. My mind was racing with a million thoughts, but my body was numb. Selena tried to approach me, stuttering an explanation, but I couldn't hear anything over the sound of my breaking heart. I looked at John, my brother, who couldn't meet my eyes. Betrayal from the two people I loved and trusted the most. It was too much to take in. I left the apartment without saying a word. I needed to be alone, to think, to breathe. The rest of the night was a blur. I wandered the streets trying to make sense of everything. The happy memories with Selena, the brotherly moments with John, they all felt like a lie now. The next few days were the hardest. I couldn't eat, sleep, or focus on work. Selena and John both tried to contact me multiple times, but I ignored their calls and messages. I was drowning in a sea of emotions, anger, sadness, betrayal, confusion. I didn't know how to move on from this. Eventually, I had to face them. I needed closure, answers. I agreed to meet Selena first. She was tearful, apologetic, and full of excuses. She said it was a mistake, that she didn't mean for it to happen. But how could something like this be a mistake? It wasn't just one moment. It was months of deceit. As I approached Selena's apartment, expecting a quiet reunion, the sounds of laughter and music hinted at something entirely different. Confused and curious, I used the spare key she had given me to quietly let myself in. The sight before me was like a knife through my heart. Selena and John, immersed in each other's company, were dancing intimately, oblivious to the world around them, and to my presence the intimacy between them was unmistakable and deeply unsettling. I cleared my throat to announce my presence, instantly shattering their bubble. They sprang apart, their expressions a mix of shock and guilt. Selena's eyes were wide, her mouth opening and closing as if trying to find the right words. John, meanwhile, looked like he was caught in his worst nightmare. The room was thick with tension and unspoken truths. Selena stumbled over her words, trying to offer some explanation, but it was all white noise to me. Her words were drowned out by the pounding in my ears and the crushing weight of betrayal. I looked at John, searching for some hint of remorse, but he couldn't even meet my eyes. In that moment, the two people I loved and trusted the most had betrayed me in the deepest way possible. I left the apartment without uttering a word. The need to escape, to be anywhere but in that room, was overwhelming. That night, I wandered the city streets aimlessly, trying to make sense of the betrayal of the shattered pieces of my heart and trust. In the following days, I was a shadow of myself, lost in a haze of pain and confusion. Ina and John tried to reach out, bombarding me with calls and messages, but I couldn't face them. I was drowning in a sea of emotions, anger, sadness, betrayal, confusion, and had no idea how to swim to the surface. Eventually, I knew I had to confront them, to seek closure and perhaps some understanding. I met with Selena first. She was tearful, apologetic, a stark contrast to the confident woman I had fallen in love with. She spoke of mistakes, of things getting out of hand, but her words felt hollow. How could such a profound betrayal be just a mistake? It wasn't a momentary lapse. It was a series of choices that led to our downfall. The meeting with Selena left me with more questions than answers. Her tears and apologies, though seemingly sincere, couldn't erase the image of her with John. Her explanations, filled with regret and pleas for forgiveness, echoed hollowly in my mind. The realization that our relationship, which I had treasured, was marred by such betrayal was agonizing. It was time to confront John. I needed to hear his side, to understand why my own brother would betray me in such a profound way. The conversation with John was tense and uncomfortable, filled with awkward silences and defensive remarks. Initially, he attempted to downplay what had happened, but as the discussion progressed, his defenses crumbled. John confessed to developing feelings for Selena over time, admitting that their friendship had crossed boundaries while I was away. John's attempt to justify his actions, claiming he hadn't intended to hurt me, did little to assuage my pain. His words meant to be conciliatory, only deepened my sense of betrayal. It was a deliberate choice, a betrayal not just of our brotherly bond, but of the trust and love I had placed in both him and Selena. During the meeting with John, I felt more lost and alone than ever. The bond I once shared with my brother was irreparably broken. The following days were a blur of emotional turmoil. I immersed myself in work to distract from the heartache, but the shadow of betrayal followed me relentlessly. My parents, witnessing the rift between John and me, tried to intervene, but the damage was too deep. John never apologized, never showed any remorse for the upheaval he had caused. In a twisted way, I even felt a pang of sympathy for Selena. She too was a victim of John's manipulative charm, just as she had once manipulated me. In a desperate attempt to find peace, I decided to leave the country. The distance I hoped would help me heal, to perhaps find a way to move past the pain and betrayal. As I prepared for this new chapter, the lessons of trust and intuition weighed heavily on my mind. In the aftermath of everything, the reality of Selena and John's relationship began to unravel further. John's reluctance to embrace the responsibilities of his actions, coupled with his history of womanizing, spelled disaster for their hastily constructed relationship. Selena, who had once manipulated the dynamics between us to attract John's attention, found herself abandoned and facing an unplanned pregnancy alone. The truth of their liaison and its consequences slowly came to light, relayed to me by Selena's mother. John's response to the pregnancy, suggesting an abortion, revealed his unwillingness to face the reality he had helped create. Selena, now fully aware that she was just another notch in John's belt, was filled with regret over her treatment of me. During this tumultuous period, I struggled with deep-seated mental health issues. Healthy and medication provided some relief, but the complete healing I sought seemed elusive. In a bid to find solace, I made the difficult decision to leave the country, hoping distance would help me heal from the wounds of betrayal. Despite the pain, I couldn't help but feel a sense of empathy for Selena. Like me, she had been ensnared by John's charm and manipulation. In a cruel twist of fate, she became a victim of the very game she had played with me. My family, in an attempt to right the wrongs and provide support, offered assistance to Selena for the upbringing of her child. As I prepared for my departure, I realized that the scars of the past would always be a part of me, a reminder of the painful lessons learned. As time passed, I began to reflect on the entire ordeal with a different perspective. The anger and bitterness gradually gave way to a sense of acceptance and understanding. I recognized the importance of trusting my instincts and the consequences of ignoring them. This painful chapter of my life, while harrowing, imparted invaluable lessons about trust, betrayal, and the resilience of the human spirit. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more captivating tales at Marvel Mind Stories. Your support helps us bring more such stories to life. Thank you for being a part of our storytelling journey.